Welcome to the Smart Dating Academy podcast. I'm Bela, Gandhi, the founder of Smart Dating Academy and your host. I started Smart Dating Academy in 2009 because I had this crazy knack of giving people dating advice that actually worked, that I took. I've been married for almost 25 years, and now my company helps people to date smarter and to find love. This podcast is meant to bring more love into your life, no matter where you are and what you do. And we're here to bring more life into your love. Smart daters, welcome back. I, as always, you know me, I'm jumping out of my skin, excited about this episode. Why? Because this is the first time I've got two people on with me. It's like the menage a trois of podcasts. So, right. I know. Right. I hope you didn't crash your car while you were listening to that. And so today is going to be a love story of this beautiful, stunning, and more importantly, beautiful on the inside client named Mindy. And I've also brought Lindsay, our smart dating, our own heart and soul, back onto the podcast to talk to you and Mindy about what it was like to be Mindy's personal trainer for love through this process. Spoiler alert, Mindy was just like you, and now Mindy's in love. So she's going to share every little nugget that helped her along the way, because ultimately what we want is to put more love into the world, and more importantly, put love and a lid to your pot in your world. So Mindy, Lindsay, welcome to the Smart Dating Academy podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
I am so excited to be back, and I'm so excited to see Mindy again, because it's so fun when we get a chance to talk on the phone and coach on a regular basis to see your lovely face again.
Absolutely.
You guys are very lucky. Mindy is highly coachable and truly delightful in every way.
Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you. I've really enjoyed this whole process with both of you, even starting with Bela, and then the whole process with Lindsay has just been inspiring. And I've gained two great friends in this whole process as well.
You have. I know.
Oh my gosh. Podcast over. Just kidding. So
that's the best part of our job. Seriously. We just, you get so invested with the people that you work with, and you care so much, and it really turns into just a really beautiful relationship. And so I'm really a beautiful relationship that we can help with, and a beautiful friendship.
Yes, absolutely.
So why don't we do this? Mindy, kind of set the stage for us. Tell us a little bit, I'm just going to say, tell us about you. Tell us about you kind of as a teenager, what it was like at home, dating, all of the things, and then, your husband. So set the stage.
So growing up, my parents are actually still married 54 years.
Oh, yay, mom and dad.
Yeah, I have an older sister and brother. So we had a very loving relationship, but at the same time, I always say to people, we love hard and we fight hard. A strong, very Catholic family that we were very involved with activities, and our parents were always there. And just seeing my mom and dad, how they were towards each other, very supportive and loving. But then there was times where there was some tough times that I got to witness growing up, and seeing how they interacted through those hardships kind of established possibly my long-term relationships of how I deal with relationships with men, or even friendships, or even my family. So I was about 16 years old, and my brother was actually looking for a roommate because he was older than me, and he found this friend and they got along, and he was actually a part of our family, this guy, for the next couple of years. And I never thought in a million years I would actually end up dating him, because he was 6 years older than me. He did not ask me out until I was 19 years old. And so through high school, I really never dated. I mean, I did here and there, but I really did not have that long-term relationship with anybody and understanding. But then I looked at my parents, who have been together since they were 16 and 17, of like, that's what I want. I want to have a long-term relationship for the rest of my life. So my ex-husband, Jason, and I started dating, and how he pursued me was every single date that we went on, he brought me a gift, which I was like,
Wow.
why am I getting a gift every single time? And I felt like a little naive looking back because I did not know what I was doing other than I'm going on a date with this older man that's well established with his career. He has his own home, just doing things right in my mindset of that's what I should be with. And my family accepted him because he had been in my family for so long. So they knew him. So I was comfortable, and I was going through college, and we went through me going through college, him going through career changes. And then we ended up getting married. And I thought, this is the love of my life, and with him, things were just a little bit different. He came from my family that they never fought. Everything was pushed under the rug. And then my family was a little bit different. We fought hard, but we loved hard, and we'd come back and everything would be fine. So establishing that relationship was a little bit different because we had to come to terms with how are we going to raise our kids? And so raising our kids, we have two beautiful children. I have a 17-year-old son, 18-year-old daughter, back to back, and we are great parents. It just, through that time, I was also teaching and him having his career. And I felt like I had the best of both worlds at that time in my life.
When the kids were growing up.
When the kids were growing up, I was able to take care of my babies at home during the day, teach at night, and I was loving that aspect. There was still fighting with my family. There was all turmoil as far as, how you're doing this and whatnot. And I thought I had this supportive person, but really I had this man that just kept wanting more out of life and never was just happy with what his career path was. And I just kind of kept going with the flow. I had never lived on my own. I had never had a roommate. This was the only person in my life that I had lived with and been with.
All you knew.
And that's all I knew. I knew from going from my parents' house to his house. And so I really didn't know. And we decided to open up a business. I had no idea what I was doing. He really pushed it, and I wasn't ready for it because I just wanted to be at home with my kids and then teach at night. And when we opened up the business, he really just was kind of tunnel vision into his business, and his career was changing. His full-time career was changing. That was a very, very well-established career.
Yeah.
After a couple of years, we were doing very well as far as the business, but I was working about 60 hours a week.
Wow.
Kids.
And mommy.
It was like completely opposite of what I was experiencing. And there was a lot of times where I just said, can we just sell the business? This is not what I want. And he insisted we need to keep going. And then he went through some dark times. His dad had passed away, and his career was definitely having an effect on him. And he went through a very dark place where he pushed me out. I was nothing to him. I was not attractive to him. Even as a mom, I just felt defeated. I felt worthless because he just pushed me away. Yeah. But in the meantime, my office manager that I considered a very dear friend was going through a divorce. So I was being there for her, but then she was being there for me. But in the meantime, this whole process, my ex-husband and her were talking behind my back for a whole year. And every single time that I would question the texting, the phone calls, the meeting up, they kept saying, I don't know what you're talking about. Mindy, we're talking about the business.
Oh my God.
I felt crazy. I felt like, is anybody else in this world seeing this? And me talking to my parents were on my side. Yeah. And here I'm trying so hard to salvage my marriage. But at the same time, every single time I would talk to this office manager, I would basically tell her what I was doing with my husband. This is how I'm going to salvage it. Yeah. And instead, I was the naggy wife, and she was the perfect friend. Let's just say that. And then after a year, he decided to file for divorce. And my world was just taken away. Everything the house, everything was just taken away. And I had to start over from scratch. I had never paid myself. This is the first time I was paying myself through the business. I had to get a house. All I could think about is I need to survive. I need to get through this with my kids, take care of them, and then also take care of this business, because this is all I know at this point. Even with my degree, this is all I knew.
Wow, you were
Oh.
completely gaslit.
Yes.
You were lied
Right.
to by two really important people in your life that you had trusted, you were confiding in. And then he files. I mean, I have chills listening to this.
I know.
Yes. I mean, there was a time that I just was seeking any type of help to salvage that marriage. And I remember the moment that the office manager, I knew it clicked in my head, because still I was kind of on the fence of, is this really happening? And I was talking about parenting, of co-parenting and 50 custody. And she said, he deserves those kids just as much as you do. And
oh, so you started to realize there was really more behind the betrayal.
Yes.
You were like, wait, what? You were Team Mindy 5 seconds ago. What happened? And it was like the Jekyll Hyde at a certain point, right?
And how ironic, she wouldn't allow her ex-husband to see her kids. So that's when I knew. That's when I knew.
Look at you.
Wow.
This,
I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done ever speaking about anything to you at this point. And I had nothing to prove as far as the cheating and what was going on. But she ended up quitting. And that's when I had to sit down my staff and say, you know what, she's gone. And I know you're all friends with her, because she portrayed this perfect woman. And I said, I will never speak of her again. And that next year, when I'm going through my divorce, one by one, my employees were coming to me saying we had no idea, because she was trying to sabotage me. And my ex kept saying, I don't know what you're talking about. So they just kept this role of, there's something going on, but yet there was, and people were starting to see it. I wasn't the only one. I did not feel crazy anymore at that time.
Well, and I think that that's so important, just when you're being gaslit, that there's something in your gut that knows that it's not right. But when the two closest people to you are going to convince you it's not, how it can be this massive wave of confusion and self-doubt. And then you throw that into being exhausted, because you're still parenting. You're still trying to repair your marriage. You're still building a business. It's enough to make anybody feel out of control in that way. And then to find out that you were right, I'm curious, like, how did that impact you trusting your gut moving forward?
I think the trust process moving forward was so hard, because it wasn't just my ex-husband. It was a good friend of mine, and also that was the face of my business. And so relationships with men or family members or friendships really were hard, because I doubted myself. I doubted, are they really going to come through? Are they really going to be there for me? Are they going with their words, their actions and their words? Are they meeting? So for me, I was just in tunnel vision mode. I just kept going. And there were 3 people in my life that I only confided in at that time. And, I was seeking therapy. I needed therapy to get through this, because I was heartbroken that here I thought this was supposed to be the love of my life. Looking at my children, them being so little and not understanding what's going on. And also seeing this woman that was my best friend going, I don't understand.
Karma.
I know. And the funny thing is now that they're older, they have a voice and they're talking about it more, because they said, Mom, when we were little, we felt like we didn't have a voice because we couldn't say anything about the situation. And it just is heartbreaking, because you as a parent, you want to protect them and you want to get them through that hard time. And gosh, I was so vulnerable with them, with telling them, I love you. I care about you. I know your dad does too. And we care about you together as parents. But we're just not going to work out. and you're going to be okay. We're here for you. But just hearing them now that they're older, I'm hearing a lot more of what they went through. And, it's eye-opening right now, and they
Such a good mom. I mean, that's what kids need to hear. And it's so hard because they don't give us the manual. So
no, they don't.
They do not. They do not give us a manual.
I'm still waiting for a dating version of parenting. That would be great. So, Mindy, after that relationship and your trust is shaken and you are coming from this foundation where you thought you were with the love of your life and you faced this massive betrayal, how did that inform the next big relationship you found yourself into? Like tell us a little bit about the next guy who had the name that I always joke, all blank or bad, but you could tell us a little bit about this guy.
I was at a point in my life where my mom was like, you need to get on some dating sites. And I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I've never dated before. And so, I got on Match. That was the very first one that I ever got on. I was kind of overwhelmed. But I did meet some good guys. I met some scary guys.
Yeah.
But again, I had no idea what I was doing. And I think I was not healed at all. I was not healed. I was still very emotional. And then all of a sudden, it was probably 8 months later, this guy came in and he was very handsome and his name was Chad. And that name that we just don't really like. Sorry for all the good Chads in the world.
Sorry. I know. Sorry for all the good ones. I always joke with, but all Chads are bad.
All Chads are bad. Hey, quick question to put this into perspective. You get divorced, you're in therapy. How long until you hopped onto the sites? Like, what was the time frame? Like, bring us to present time in the story.
I think he filed in August and I was out of the house by October.
Okay.
And it was by December, like it was New Year's, December 31st, that I got on Match just to say, because my mom, she just kept pushing because she just wanted to get me out of that mindset of being in a depressive mode, I guess. And she just wanted to seek me happy. But that was probably December, January, but really I had no idea what I was doing. And I did not meet Chad until June. So it took a long time. But I was not ready.
Raw.
Of course.
You were raw. It was like 12 weeks after divorce.
Yeah.
Right? Or 12 weeks after he filed that
Yes.
you're on the apps, more or less.
I was not ready. And looking back, that is one thing that I suggest to all women is take your time, heal, get through those moments. But I met Chad and he came on so strong. He would text me and text me and text me, wanting to get to know me. And it took a little bit for him to actually physically meet me because he was 2 hours away, but he worked here. It was a weird dynamic, but once he came on, it was flowers and showing up and just saying I think after 3 weeks, he said, I want to marry you. And I was like,
dun, 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 red flag.
I mean, we had gone to a game in St. Louis and they got these, I guess, the rings that you earn when, the baseball team wins. And he gave it to me. He goes, if this were a ring, I'm going to give it to you. And I want to marry you. And I'm like,
Few weeks in.
And I was like, okay, well, he really likes me. But I'm not ready to get married. The papers aren't even signed yet. My kids, you have not been introduced to my kids. Like there was so much going on in my head, but still I was so vulnerable and I trusted him and I felt safe with him because he was saying all the right things. And after 2 months, I got to see the real version of him. And it was a little scary. It was alcohol induced. And I was not drinking. I just saw this vicious side and this temper tantrum. And I'm like, no way, I'm done. And And I sat him down. I said, this is not what I want for my kids. But yet I kind of laid low a little bit, and then he just kept coming back. He would come back really strong and loving, and I'm going to be here for you. And then it would go back to his old habits. And I think for me, I still was not healed because I was not strong enough to say goodbye, shutting the door. I don't want to see you ever again. Yeah. And so that was on and off for a while. And he ended up moving here to try to see if things worked out. And I will tell you the truth. The emotional and mental abuse that he put in my mind did not help at all. I had gone through therapy and I thought I was strong enough, and putting my foot down, he just kept going to his old habits. And I was allowing that. To happen. And I kept thinking, he's going to change. If I do this, he's going to change. No, he wasn't changing. And I think there was a moment that kind of hit me with my children because they knew of him. He just wouldn't really come around. And there was a tornado drill in our neighborhood, and we were in the closet, and then I hadn't really spoken to him. And he actually was calling, his name came across my phone, and my kids looked down and they said, don't answer it, because he was calling me to check on me and the kids.
Okay.
So that's an eye-opening experience when your kids are saying, don't answer it.
Yeah. They didn't like him.
They did not like him. And they still are so thankful that he is not in my life, because again, they were so young at one time that they couldn't really speak up. And now I hear so much, and I wish that I was more open with their feelings too, because they could see that I was hurt and I was crying, but I would never tell them really why I was crying. I would just step in another room, being that protective mom, but yet my kids are watching and they're listening. So
and Mindy, was it alcohol driven? So when he would get drunk, he would get mean and threaten and say awful things like, is that what was going on? Just to clarify it in my mind.
Yes, a lot of alcohol. Even my parents noticed how much alcohol he would take in. Like, we would be at their pool, and the fights, he was just vicious. He was threatening to me and my life, my reputation, everything. And so it got to a point that I got scared. I got scared of, maybe I can just be friends with him and we will just have that friendship relationship. And because I was so scared of what he could do. Yeah. And finally, I just had enough. And I said, enough's enough. I'm going to therapy again. I'm going to be stronger. I started reading self-help books. I started listening to Bela on the Instagrams during COVID. And I just started relating to other women's stories. And I thought, if they can get through this, so can I. Because you never think that you're going to be in those shoes. And then when you start listening to other women, you're like, if they can get out, I can get out. And it was abuse. And it might have not been that physical abuse. It was that emotional, verbal abuse that I couldn't take. I told him one time, my soul is broken. My soul, no desire at all to ever be with a man, see a man, because it was just traumatizing to me. And I'm still having those trust issues. And it's not only from my ex-husband, but also him, because I confided in him my world, my stories, my pain, and he would use it against me.
Against you.
I'm going to self-sabotage you. I'm going to use it against you. I'm going to hurt you. Yeah. And
this is what narcissists do. And if you look at, you'd been in this relationship that your marriage had started off, you were young, but then the behavior turned and you started getting gaslit, and there was a lot of inconsistencies and a lot of blaming. And that behavior starts to become familiar. And so then you start dating when you're raw. What do? You gravitate towards what's familiar. And that's very normal to sort of say, so when somebody comes on strong and you haven't had this attention and it is like shining a light, it's intoxicating. it's so understandable why people fall into that. And this is a lot of reasons why if you'd married in a lot of second marriages will end in divorce if these patterns aren't addressed.
Right.
And so his charming side, but what I think is super interesting, I think that listeners really should note, this behavior came out about 2 months in. And what we'll tell you is it's around months 3, months 4, there's usually a big crack in the armor. And it's a good indicator that something's amiss. And we call it sort of the tip of the iceberg. And then you give things time, you start revealing a whole host of other red flags. And, Mindy, you're not alone with this. It happens all the time. And the fact that you were so brave to end the relationship, that you were brave to really look at yourself and look at what you wanted to do to improve, get the help you needed, get the therapy, stand up for yourself, still run a successful business and be there for your kids. I mean, wow, hats off to you. You are superwoman.
Well, thank you. I think it took a lot of being vulnerable with people around me that care about me and love me and looking out for me, putting my kids first and putting me first of this is not healthy. I mean, it was physically my life, my body, everything. It was just changing. And so that's why I just had to get out, and it was very toxic. And women are very brave to get out of those relationships. And I wish more and more people were upfront about what they're going through. That way they have people behind them supporting them to help them get out.
Absolutely. And one thing that I love what you said, it's like your parents had a great marriage, but we love hard and we fight hard. So from your family background, you had a relationship. I can only imagine as a kid, what you would think is love can be hard, right? And so you're willing to withstand all of this stuff with your ex-husband until that breaking point happens. Chad comes in. You're like, okay, again, love is hard. Love requires fighting. So, but at a certain point, and how long did your relationship with Chad last ultimately?
Ultimately, it was on and off for 3 years.
3 years, right? And this is 3 years. Like you said, you're healing. You're going through therapy. You had been through this again. But those, like Lindsay said, those patterns of familiarity and those core beliefs, love is hard. There is fighting, right? There will be trauma, and then gravitating towards people that are familiar and abusive. You're a beautiful, smart, educated person. It's like this can happen to every single one of us.
Yes, it can.
Absolutely.
Right. And so what was your point where you're like, enough is enough? And what brought you to Instagram? And let's kind of flip into where the light started to shine in your life.
Bella, I had heard about you prior to COVID, and there was, little things that you would post. But then it was during COVID. Obviously, we're all in our homes, and I was still working. However, your your Instagrams were going on Thursday evenings, and I was working. So I was like running home to get the tail end of your Instagram. But then the next day, I would just play it and listen to it. There was a lot that people were promoting their books. I would get their books. I am like listening to everything Bela has to say and going, yes, I agree with her. Yes, I've been through that. Oh my gosh, this is me. And so for the next year, I just kept listening to you and what you were saying. And finally, it was November, December that I felt like 2022 is going to be my year. My kids are getting older. They're going to be moving out of the house for college. And I thought, this is the time for me. I want to do it the right way. I know that I've really tried hard to date, but I'm not doing it the right way. I am going into it, completely I have no idea what I'm doing. So that's when I reached out to Bela, and I'm so glad I did, because it was the best investment I've ever made, because it was about me and my process and what my traumas I've gone through. I mean, gosh, sitting down with Lindsay for, just to get to know my past and my present and what I need to be looking forward into my dating world really has helped navigate where I am today. And that's not just in a relationship, but that's how I see how I approach my business or my family or friendships. I'm really just sit back and I think about things of how I deal with them. Yeah. So that's where I'm at today.
Oh,
well, let's flip back. Tell us what happened. So you decide to make this investment and we're excited. I know you came to Chicago, you did your photo shoots. I mean, you're dazzling and stunning. And those photos were spectacular. Was that a fun day?
Oh my gosh. I was the most giddy little girl ever that day. I mean, first of all, in Chicago in February, it was like -6 degrees. And
I tell you guys, come do this in the fall. Don't wait till January, February. Okay.
But I will tell you, your group of women that come together made me feel, and I know I've said this before, like Cinderella, and made me feel so comfortable that day. Just the whole process. It was just so much fun. It was like a girl day. We're dressing up, we're taking pictures. I felt like $1 million that day of how I looked and how I felt. I just felt so confident that day. Oh. And like I said, they made me feel so comfortable and we got to know each other and, establish a relationship again. It's just getting to know them and that whole process. And also just taking my mind away from my reality was really great, just to get away and focus on just me. Yeah. And knowing that this is going to be my future. This is what we're setting myself up for. Was just a fantastic day for me, in my confidence and who I was and just everything.
Yeah. Like a butterfly and you hit the reset button. It's like, okay, now I have these two people who are just going to support either side and really help watch and make sure that there are no repeating of the past patterns and there's no missteps. Yeah. Yes. Your photos, I mean, really, wow, your photos were fantastic. Just another side note.
I loved the photo. I loved Michelle. I mean, they were amazing. Both of them, they just knew. And I'm like, they're going into these different areas. And I'm like, how are we going to get that shot? And it came out amazing. Like, it was the coolest shots that we were doing. And I would have never known, just from that perspective. So creative. My makeup, gosh, she just kept adding different things. And I'm like, gosh, you're just making me feel even better about myself. And I know confidence is huge just in general, but just adding just a little bit of a lipstick. I mean, what Bela says, that red, that berry red, I mean, gosh, it totally changes the game.
Every time.
And we do the photo shoot early in the process for precisely that reason. And we pull, like, you are a queen. And the goal is to reset the foundation to know I am a queen inside, out, and people will treat you really well. And so, and you get photos that start to, your milkshake brings all the boys to the yard. Okay? So yeah, I think that's kind of what happened. So you guys went through the 3-hour jumpstart session. You set this foundation. You're looking for a type of person. You know what your wants were. You knew what your needs are. And these are different for every single people. This is just part of our process. So now you know what the red flags are, right? And so now you hit launch and you know that there's a process behind you. You guys tell what happened during the process.
Yes.
Well, I know that just meeting with Lindsay, I loved just sitting down with her, and just that 3-hour session was just amazing for me. It was eye-opening. It really was. And her, just how she, was directing me and how I was in the past. And now, like, this is where we want to go. And just sitting down with her and writing down what I really want in someone was so important, because I've never done that. I've never just sat down and go, this is what I really want in a man. So when I launched, I was nervous because, again, going back to years prior when I was going through a divorce, I was overwhelmed of what do I do? And she was right there, with me through the whole entire process with the launch. I know that weekend I was a little busy and she said, well, we're going to launch this day. I go, can we just do it on a Monday? I think I'm going to be ready to go in my mindset. But that whole process of gearing up with my profile pics, the actual profile of what I need to include was really important because I was putting myself out there and I really wanted to gravitate towards men that put in the effort just as much as I did. And that's where she came in and she helped me say, no, we don't want this type of guy. We want this type of guy, which was really helpful. She was definitely my cheerleader right there in my ear.
And you blew up the internet. You got a huge response. We had to go through everything with a fine-tooth comb, and we did a lot of deleting and cleaning out of the inbox. But
the crazies, the unsavories, the red flaggers, all of it.
So fast, I couldn't keep up. I was like,
I know. I just start deleting right away, and then pointing out, here's a red flag, and really sort of setting good expectations around how do we screen people in, and we can't delete everybody. So we had to play the numbers game a little bit too, and keep enough people and start working the process to develop your dating funnel. But tell us about the super like that popped up in your inbox a little bit in while we're starting to work together, and kind of how that started to evolve.
I blush and I get chills.
You're turning red right now I wish you all could see this over Zoom. Like her face is matching her pretty berry lip right about now.
We were on during the day, we had met, Lindsay and I, and then that evening I noticed a super like, and I'm like, well, somebody took the time to super like me and messaged me at the same time in the same night on the first day of me launching. And so she told me, she's like, this is the process. This is what you need to do in order for him not to be a red flag. And so I'm looking at him and I'm like, well, first of all, he's very attractive. He's and I read his profile. And when I met with Lindsay, I was just like, he super liked me and messaged me. And then going from there, I was like giddy. I'm like, this is a contender, which has been the running joke, I think, because he just kept being there. And Lindsay was like, okay, we like this Mark guy. Yeah. Okay. But we still have these other prospects that we need to look into who were following the process that she told me about. But I will tell you, Mark just kept going and he was doing all the right things of what we wanted him to do as far as what I seek in a man. Yeah. So that's where Lindsay came in and just helped guided me in the right directions of what I needed to do. That way I wasn't making any more dating mistakes like I did in the past.
And Lindsay, tell people
the runner. Yeah.
Lindsay, tell people what you do. You are logged in as Mindy. You are, when Lindsay just, casually says, I went in and did this and did that. Lindsay is the pilot of the plane. Okay. Yes. Lindsay takes over, hijacks your inbox while you're in session, and literally will teach people this is a red flag. This is a green flag. And when she says, I deleted all the unsavories, she knows. And it's like, no, teach. And that's how we know we teach you. So then that is how you start to be able to fly your own ship. So Lindsay's in there helping, reading the whittling it down and making sure that even though there is this good prospect, what do most people want to do when they get a mark in their inbox? They want to stop dating other people. Right. Yeah. And so now you're cracking up. So I just wanted to kind of dig into that a little bit now. So we've got super like Mark. Yeah. We've got, other people in the funnel. What happened now, you guys?
For me,
yeah.
Go ahead, Lindsay.
Well, I was going to ask you this because I think so. We've whittled down the inbox, and Mark is looking good. He's got a great profile. There are no red flags. He is absolutely handsome. It's very exciting when you see somebody that you're attracted to, and we're keeping other people in the mix. So, biggest thing we say is always talk on the phone first. So, tell us about some of those first conversations you had with Mark and how you felt when you first screened him in.
Well, so again, you guys have a process, and it's a step-by-step process, and you said the dating funnel. And so we message each other, and how you set it up as me responding, but always asking a question to keep it going. And you said, let's turn it over to a phone call. And so I did. I'm like, hey, asking him, let's set up a phone call. I'm available this time or this time. And poor me, I made a mistake. Let's just say I was actually, he set up a phone call. He did his job. He set up a phone call on a Thursday night, and I was actually on a date, and there was a blizzard coming, and I missed his phone call because I was driving in this blizzard home, and I missed his phone call. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I just missed the phone call to hear his voice, because we want to hear his voice.
Yeah.
But instead of him just ghosting me and blowing me off, he goes, let's set up another phone call. And I said, okay. And here I thought it was a phone call, but he actually set up a FaceTime, which that's another process of
Even
that
better.
FaceTime. And I will tell you, with Bela's process through the COVID, although there's negatives, there's some positives that came out of this. And the number one thing is that FaceTime date is so important. But again, in my notes, I had it down as a phone call. I had been taking a nap that day because my son's birthday that day, and everybody was coming over. My hair's in a messy bun. Makeup smudged underneath my eyes, and he's FaceTiming me. And he told me, he goes, Mindy, I told everybody I had to be home at 3:00. I was FaceTiming someone. So he was doing his job, and I'm like, oh my God, he's FaceTiming me. So I am trying to wipe out everything. Trying to look halfway decent. And you guys tell us, 20 to 30 minutes, maybe max, of a FaceTime call. It turned into an hour. And I loved every minute of it, because the conversation just flowed. It wasn't like, what's your favorite color, or what do you do for a living? It was honestly the most natural conversation I've ever had. And getting off that phone call, I was like, well, I want more. And what did he do? He set up a date. He set up that date during that FaceTime of, hey, I would like to meet you for lunch this date. He set a time and a date. Yes. And I was like, okay. So I got off the phone going, well, all righty, I'm moving on to the next date. But at the same time, I still have that dating funnel going on with the messaging on Match, someone calling me, someone setting up a FaceTime, and then eventually turning into a date.
Yes.
But the fact that he followed all these steps, even when I missed the phone call, he kept going.
Yeah, he assumed positive intent.
Yes.
He didn't. And so often people get that message that's kind of nasty the next day, which is just another red flag. And so he was consistent. But we talk about this a lot. Men who are interested follow a very specific, and women too, but we follow very specific patterns of being consistent and not leaving you hanging or wondering what the next step is. So he follows up. And so tell us a little bit about your courtship with him. How did it start as you're dating other people, everybody? This is really important.
Lindsay did not let that funnel stop. She's
No.
like, yeah, that's great about this Mark guy. And we need to, bring in no Chads. Just kidding.
No Chads. No Chads.
No, honestly, she did say that. Like, no, we like Mark. He's up there, but we're going to keep going. And I did.
Yes, you did.
I followed all the steps because she was in my ear. We met every week, and we went through the profile. And then I would tell her about, well, I did a FaceTime with this guy. I like him. I think, I'm just waiting for the date, and he would set up a date. So, but then there were some that I was like, on this FaceTime, no, I'm done.
Oh, there were some doozies in there. I think as you're continuing to go out with Mark, and I think it was a really consistent basis. It was one date a week. You guys met for lunch several weeks in a row, right?
Yes, we actually, there was times where it was like 2 lunch meetings, maybe one on a Tuesday and then one on a Thursday. But the thing is about Mark, and I only hope about other women, is my schedule is all over the place, but he was making time. He was actually scheduling time for me to make it convenient. Which again, being a parent and being a business owner, I'm kind of all over the place. So my schedule is not ideal, but he was making that time. And I remember Lindsay saying, you've had a lot of lunch dates. We need to turn them over into the evening dates. And you know what? He did. He took that next step and he's like, I want to take you out on this evening. Would you be available? So it was that whole process of, he just kept going, and I was not being insistent on demanding on saying, well, I need you to do this. I just suggested things like, hey, maybe we should meet up sometime in the evening, for a drink or, dinner. And he jumped on it. He actually set a time, a place, and a date. And then after, I would say weeks of doing that, he sat me down, and it was at a dinner, and he's like, I just want to be exclusive with you. I only want to date you. I really have enjoyed getting to know you, and I want to get to know you more. And that's when I politely had said, I really enjoyed being with you as well. I enjoy getting to know you, but I do think it's important that there needs to be a commitment made. So I'm going to continue dating. And he respected it. And he goes, well, I'm okay with that. I'm going to keep dating you no matter what. I want to be with you. And he didn't get offended. He wasn't upset. It was like the most secure man I've ever met in my life, that he knew what he wanted and he respected it. And he kept continuing to follow, as I would say, the process.
The process. Exactly. And I think where the commitment came in, we knew he really liked you. He's more serious. But what we had talked about was the importance of time, and making sure that you drew this out as long as you could to really see who he was. Because we'd had this experience with the bad Chad, where 2 months in, things are great. And then there's this big turn in behavior. So it was giving him time and consistency to show you who he was, and put little tests along the way of, does he show up when you don't jump in to be exclusive with them right away? Does that get him upset, where he's like, if you don't want to be exclusive with me, I'm out of here? Or
Right.
Does he continue to pursue you? So you did a really good job of slowing that down while continuing to date other people. And I think he was secure enough to know, hey, in the end, she's going to end up picking me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
He was very confident with that. But again, I was dating other people. And then there was a moment that I share this story just because, again, we all have those moments with dates that will forever be with us and we will never forget.
I know which one.
Mark had actually, I was working and he had said, can I stop by just to say hi? And I thought that was very nice of him, just to say hi. And it was for 15 minutes and I showed him around my business. But I had a date scheduled that night, which was, he didn't know. He just knew I was working. And so I just thought that was very nice of him to do that. And that just more points towards him. But I ended up going on the date with this man that I went through the messaging. I went through the phone call, the FaceTime, and then he set up the date. And I got to the date a little bit late, maybe about 5-10 minutes late. And I thought he would be there. And he's like, no, I'm running late. And so I'm sitting there, at the restaurant waiting for him. And he comes in. He's like, I'm here. And I'm like, okay, he's here. And he sits down and I, again, say, hi, it's finally nice to meet you. And he's like, hey, I need to take my Invisalign out. Is that okay? And I'm like, my mouth kind of dropped, like, what? And he took it out. The slobber came with it and then he put it in his pocket. And that's when I was like, there's two moments right now. My stomach dropped. I'm sick to my stomach. That was gross. And definitely Mark is definitely the number one contender because I don't know if I can do this anymore of, that just happened. And we continued to eat our dinner, but I barely ate my dinner that night because of what just happened in front of my face.
First impressions matter and they weigh very heavily. If you're in a relationship with somebody down the road and they have Invisalign, that's when it's on a first date and then you're just taking that out, it makes a big impression. And I mean, there was a mix of a couple different people you met. And I think as we talked about, like when you were having a dating funnel, it was a really good comparison and contrast. It was a good compare and contrast to Mark. And I think people can be afraid to keep others in the mix. They feel guilty, but what it can really do, you have a good contender, it screens that contender in even more. More.
That's right.
You like them more by looking at who the other options are, and you're dating from a place of security because you're making a choice. You're not just falling for the person who picks you.
Yes.
It's much more empowering.
I think another thing just with the dating funnel too, and Bela has mentioned it in her Instagrams of the love bombing. Like I listened to these stories, but I never really narrowed it down to what love bombing was up until you pointed it out with Chad. And then now this dating funnel, I did have someone that was so intense writing me paragraphs in a text. And I'm reaching out to you, Lindsay. How do I end this? Like, what do I say to politely end this? And I did. And an hour later, I have flowers at my business. And I'm like, whoa, thank you for the flowers. But really, we need to part ways. And I think, Lindsay, with you, me reaching out to you saying, what do I do about this situation? Because I want to do this the correct way, in a respectful way. And you being there in my ear and telling me, hey, I suggest you do this, really helped me build my confidence. And then also eliminated someone that I did not need in my life.
For sure.
And it builds your confidence in knowing that you have her there to reach out to at any time going, oh my God, this crazy dude just sent me flowers. What do I do? And Lindsay, knowing Lindsay as well as I do, she'll be like, block him. And now we're done.
Yes, we're done.
Yes.
Yes, no, and there will be people who come up, and we say this over and over again, crazy can't hide. It shows up, we see it, and then we deal with it and we address it and we block it and we move on. And, so things with Mark, are going well. You had a dating funnel. You have now been dating really, actually, several weeks, a couple of months at this point. He's expressed that he really wants to date you exclusively. You buy more time. Tell us what it was about Mark that you were attracted to. I'd love for you to answer the question for the listeners. Did you have butterflies when you met him? And did you know he was the one on the very first date? And then answer how you felt as you started to get to know him more. Lots of questions.
No. So I'm going to address the first question, which was the butterflies. There were 0 butterflies.
Say that again for the people in the back. Just kidding.
There were 0 butterflies with this man. And with that, because again, I remember Bela saying, you don't want butterflies. Lindsay says, you don't want butterflies. And that first date when I met him was very calming and easy and laid back and natural. And I wasn't thinking this is the one, because I just thought, well, there's some other guys that I'm going on dates with too. This is just one of them. But I really think this man is a gentleman. He's very respectful. He's very kind. And I just kind of went about my life. And that's when he kept asking me out on more dates. But really, those first couple of weeks, I wasn't thinking that this is the one. This is just a guy that honestly, I would like to see again and get to know, because I have these other guys in my dating funnel.
Yes. Yes.
To answer your last question about him, I have a very high-paced lifestyle, a lot going on in my life, and he brings such calmness to my life. And that's where I really have enjoyed him being in my life. It's just so easy and laid back. And he takes me into just a different world. I mean, he could be over at my house when we're making dinner, and I just feel like calm. I feel like there's no busyness to my life. And I really value that. I really value someone being very supportive, gentle, and kind. And he's just everything that I, with Lindsay, wrote down of the things that I desire in a man. And it's not the 6 foot, blue eyes, whatever that the women really want. It is honestly, it's the values, the morals, the character. Oh my gosh, his personality is just, I love how he makes me laugh. I love that he can sit and listen to me. I love that he helps me through those hard times in my life that I'm going through, whether it's with my kids or my business. He shows up and he honors his words. When he says he's going to do something, he does it. And I don't have to prompt him 2 or 3 times. It is just like, he's just going to do it because he wants to. And he goes, I know I don't need to, I want to. And he always says that. He wants to be with me. He wants to be there for me. So that's what made me fall for him, is just seeing that. And I honestly, before you guys, I really thought, I don't know if there's really a guy out there for me that can deal with this crazy lifestyle and my high energy personality. But he really I always say, you're yin to my yang. It's, I'm busy and very talkative and outgoing, but he's just so calm and laid back, and we just come together. And, I just really have just enjoyed this whole process with him, and I'm very in love with him.
Oh, I can see it on your face and feel it. It's so incredibly sincere. And I think what's nice is we had this list created of who your high GHQ man was going to be. Yes. And then I know as you were trying to figure out if you wanted to be exclusive with him, I had you write another list of all the things about him that you really liked. And now looking back, when you pull out those lists and you look at sort of where we started in the process and how he falls, tell us a little bit, does he hit your list?
Oh, absolutely. He hits my list. And I know when you guys, Lindsay, you and I wrote down the most important people in my life that have affected me in a positive way, I'll never forget that. That was like, as Oprah would say, an aha moment in my life. I never realized the people that are in my life that have impacted me in such a supportive, positive way. That's the type of person that you really want in your life. All of those people, you want to put them all together, and you want that person in your life. Yeah. And that's Mark. He has checked off every single box on that list. It wasn't the previous list. It was that second list. Those are the people. I put all of those valuable relationships in my life all in one, and that's Mark. And I found him. I could get teary-eyed about it because
I'm literally, if you all could see my arms,
I know
bumps on there right now. And what I want you to hear is there is a better way to do this, right? There is a way to feel secure and to feel like you have guidance, and most importantly, to have a dating funnel, to date slowly, to do all the things. Mindy, you're incredibly coachable. You're all that is good. And I knew your story, but these podcasts and really drilling in, I am not rendered speechless that often, as both of you know, but I'm just, what you guys have done together is really remarkable. And I'm so happy that Lindsay has been able to walk you through this process that is navigated with love bombers, kooks, people that you need to block, and giving you the script and sitting and whispering in your ear the things that you need to say or not say to keep things going. And you guys are in love, and he sounds amazing. He sounds like the lid to your pot. And I'm going to put my coach hat on for 1 second. And I want you to always remember, in this relationship with Mark is that relationships can and should be easy. That doesn't mean they're not work. It's always work to keep a good relationship. It's work to keep a friendship. It's work to keep those relationships with your teenagers, like we've talked about. And it's certainly work with the romantic partner, but it's not soul crushing, crying at the pool, ripping your hair out, wondering, am I in this world of gaslighting? It's a little bit of work, but continue to know fighting hard is not something that I want you to do, and you don't need to do.
Right. Right.
And it sounds like you've met your match.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and Mark and I, there's been some, moments where I think some of my trauma from my past have come in, and that's where Lindsay has said, hey, let's sit back. Is that from your previous relationships? Is that what you're facing? And I've been very open with Lindsay about, that whole process, because there's been moments with Mark and I that I question things just because of that past trauma. Yes. And that's where she's really has helped me work through those moments. Yeah. And then also, I think what I've learned with this whole process with Lindsay is, and you, Bella, is establishing those boundaries at the very beginning of your relationship of, this is what I want and for my future, and eliminating those red flag guys. I mean, they ran far because they didn't want someone forever, so just sitting there with Lindsay and talking to her about some things that have arisen in our relationship. And it is based on my previous past. And I think she's been very helpful through that. We're like not just my coach, but also a therapist too, in a sense of guiding me of, okay, I want you to sit back and I want you to write down. I want you to listen to this podcast. I want you to read this book. That has really helped me, because again, you guys are there for a reason. And I would only hope that people that are your clients are listening to what you're coaching, because you guys are definitely there. You are 100% real. And I followed every step, and I believe in you guys. I believe in you 110% with what you guys are doing.
I'm so emotional with this.
I know. This
wow, you've made my whole day and week and life. No, I really appreciate that. It's so sincere.
And you guys are talking marriage, huh?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
You guys hear that? Go into the chapel and we're gonna get. Okay, I'll stop serenading you.
That's a better song than the milkshake song. Let's just go there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm clearly in
You do not know that reference, but anyway, no. But what I wanted to say is, I'm so proud of you, and I'm so happy that you didn't let the difficult relationships from your past and the other narcissist inform your future in the way that it kept you from ever trying to look for love again. That you didn't give those guys all your power and all your control and saying, well, gosh, you know what? Love is not going to be for me because that's all there is. And that you looked at doing things differently. And you were so incredible. You're so incredible, coachable, but this is why you're successful. You know how to really internally look and do the work, but you're very self-aware. And I couldn't be happier for you guys. And this has been really fun today, guys. I love these love stories. I mean, we love love, but
we really love love. And we're going to have a page that you can refer to on our website, talking about Mindy's story. And you can see pictures of her from our photo shoot. And most importantly, pictures of her with the cute lid to her pot. And Mindy, thank you so much for being so open to the process, being open on this episode. And I know there's going to be so many people out there that can relate to you and to the experiences you've had. You are a freaking warrior goddess. You're a badass entrepreneur. You're an amazing mom. You're a great friend. You're a great girlfriend. And I can't wait to see what your future holds.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for everything you guys have done for me. You really have inspired me and just push me into a different direction. And I feel 100% ready for this next chapter in my life.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Well, smart daters, if you feel called to it, sign up for our free newsletter. Go to smartdatingacademy.com. Check out the page. It'll be in the show notes of Mindy's relationship. Follow us on Instagram. Like Mindy said, she tuned into those IG lives. There are 40 hours of Instagram lives. If you follow us on Instagram at Smart Dating Academy, swipe over to where you can see the IGTV series. You'll be completely sick of my voice by the end of those 40 hours. Either that or you'll be like, I need to come and do this. It'll be one or the other. Yes. So with that, we bid you farewell. And I hope that you are as inspired by Mindy's love story as Lindsay and I are, because we know, most importantly, feel this in your soul, all the way from the top of your head to your toes. Love is out there for you. Love is coming to you. It's a when, it's not an if. Get psychotically optimistic about your future and you finding the lid to your pot. And we'll see you next week.